Professor Storm is always keeping me in check. So really quickly, just to catch up for online, who's designed their resume in Figma? Yeah, a couple of you guys. You kind of messed up a little bit. Figma has this really nasty habit of taking PDFs and jumbling up all those words and letters that are in there. So take GIT 550 because I talk about all of this. When you go to apply for jobs, there is something called an ATS scanner. Automated something.
Application tracking system.
Thank you. Yes, application tracking system. That was way off. Look at me. So if you design your resume or things like that in Figma, because it's a digital publication tool and not designed necessarily for exporting PDFs, even though they let you, it has this really bad habit of just disassociating all the letters and you get jumbled.
I've experienced that. I gave my resume to a recruiter and she's like, can you do this resume in a different format?
Yes. Yes. So that happens sometimes. And a lot of mostly larger companies, but even some mid-sized companies, they will just ignore your resume. They've got hundreds of applications to go through. So that could be the one thing that's just preventing you from getting into their systems. So you'll hear me talk about this. I highly, highly, highly recommend design your resume in a Word doc. Actually, a Word doc is the best thing because there's no other option but to read from left to right. And then if you want to get a little bit fancier, you can also design it in InDesign, but you have to structure your layers in a very specific way. And that can, if you're not familiar with it, you might be setting yourself up for failure. So a Word doc is the safest bet. Yeah.
Why Illustrator design this piece?
So because if you don't structure your document correctly, the ATS can't read it. The ATS is going to read from top left to bottom right.
No, for this.
Oh, for that. Why would I not design it in Illustrator? Just because of the multiple folds. Really quick, can I get one of those up here? That way I can show online. Mind if I steal yours?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. So for those of you online, I brought in a little example just because the other day I was mentioning how there are some things that some people might say would be better to design in InDesign. And this one from the surface might look like that, but then you get a couple more folds out of it. And this would be really, really difficult, if not maybe even impossible to design in InDesign, just because of the number of folds. You could probably get there, but notice too that each fold is a slightly different size. That's part of what makes it a little bit challenging as well. Whereas in InDesign, it's going to be really hard. Illustrator, you can do that really, really quickly. And oftentimes the printers have templates for things like these that'll work in, sometimes they give you Photoshop templates. I don't know why. But usually they will have an option for AutoCAD, AutoCAD, Illustrator, and Photoshop. Sorry, who did I steal that from?
But it's still possible to make it like
something like that, probably not. No.
Make it on PDF.
So all Adobe applications, most Adobe applications allow you to export to PDF. Cool. All right, let's get started for today. I have a lot of things to cover. I don't know how this is going to work. Professor Storm, tell me if you're able to see that. Should be a photo of Teddy.
It's not super easy to see it because
that is Teddy Roosevelt.
If you are you not able to share your
Professor
screen?
Storm, does that work?
Well, so you can't share your screen.
Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
Can you share your screen?
There we go. I have to Zoom to hear you in the classroom, and I have to use the dot cam in order for the classroom to see it. This will be fun.
Well, okay. So all I was saying is if you could share the screen, then we could see it. But if you can't, then I guess we'll just have to squint.
I was going to do a little bit of an exercise that is somewhat tactile. So let me...
Is there a way to zoom in the camera that we are currently looking at you in, the classroom camera?
No, because we are in a crappy classroom.
Oh, no, I think you're the one in a crappy classroom. I'm in my dining room.
I know. Let me see. Sometimes they put a little remote here. No, I don't see it. Okay, I will forego it. That was a little bit of an extra, so I won't worry about it. Let's see. Someone in the comments on the upper left, we can change the view. So here, I won't be able to hear you guys online for a second. So if you're talking, maybe throw it in the chat so that I can see it. I'm curious what happens if I do dot cam. And then hopefully you guys can see that. And then up in the top next to my profile picture for the classroom here, try pinning that at the top and see if that helps with the visual.
Yeah,
maybe that'll work.
Yeah.
Professor Storm is talking, but I cannot hear Professor Storm.
Okay, well, are you able to hear me? No, you can't.
That's so fun.
Okay, I will say something and I will get done.
No worries.
When you are recording on the
Yep.
Zoom, are you recording just what the classroom camera is picking up, or are you doing like the whole group?
I think it is recording the whole group. So I have it pinned on my side, which I hope means that in the recording, it will show as my picture very big and everyone else's picture very small. We'll see what happens. Worst case scenario, I can splice in a little extra video in there.
Yeah, so Hernan is saying on the view button, click on speaker. So if it's a speaker view, then you should be okay.
Let's see. Yeah, we are in a interesting situation here. Okay, I think we should be good.
Okay, well, we'll all cross our fingers. Thank you.
Yep. Worst case scenario, I get to re-record it later, and that'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm muting, and I'm gonna not talk again. Okay. Oh, hey, that works. Yes, that's better.
We have camera control.
Woo!
Whoa!
Oh well, yeah.
Hold on. Oh, this is quite fun. Is that two? Oh, I'm not there. I'm neither there either. Okay.
There you go. Up, up, up.
Oh, come back. There's no happy medium.
Try with some of the presets.
Okay. Hold on. I apologize. We're just having a good time now. Please bear with me. All right, we're gonna turn the camera off and on again because that's what IT told me to do.
Go back to the same spot.
Okay, camera control. Let's
Just have one of your students climb up on the ceiling and
just like
What's the preset one?
Yeah, the
You have to set it.
presets.
I
the
think you have to set
presets
that.
do wild and crazy things, so yeah, we're just gonna inch it.
Yeah.
No, come back.
No, you're good.
No,
Okay.
you're good. You're good.
All right, that's as best you're gonna get. Deal with it. All right, I'm gonna switch it to the dot cam, so you may not. I won't be able to hear you, but we'll work on it. If you have to yell at me, use the chat. All right, dot cam. Hooray! Now we're working, and I learned something new today. All right, I wanted to. A lot of you guys have mentioned something about how I'm not very good at drawing. It's okay. We don't need to be good at drawing. We just need to be good at tracing, right? Did anyone go out and buy yourself one of these? A couple of people? Don't worry, you don't necessarily need to, but it is helpful because it gives you might be wondering, why do I have so many different types of pencils? Each pencil has a different thickness of graphite. Contrary to popular belief, this is not lead, it is graphite. And that different thickness or hardness of the graphite produces different results. So I was actually testing it earlier. This is me using roughly the same level of pressure with each pencil and getting slightly darker and darker results, just depending on the type of pencil that I'm using. This won't be very illustrative for the, well, actually, maybe it will. Ooh, that is horribly jaundicing. You might be able to see how thick that tip is. There are actually better solutions out there. but I'm gonna use this because this is what I told you guys to get. You don't need this for the class per se, but this does become really helpful as you go throughout your career. They make some of these like pens, I'll try to bring one in. I swear I'm a little bit more put together, but they make them that are a little bit thicker, and it's just like a full stick of graphite that you can use to just ink over the entire page. I'm going to use this, and what you might think is, okay, the image is here and I want to trace it. There's actually a couple of different ways that you can go about this. You can go about it the easy way, which in my opinion is put the image on the bottom, put a piece of paper over the top. But that has a little bit of a problem if you can already see it. Really hard to see the image, right? Now you could, I won't be able to show this, but you could put the back paper on a piece of like a light table or something. I don't recommend using your laptop screen. That can ask me how I know. That can create some problems for your screen. So instead, what makes this a little bit easier is take the image page and flip it over. Then take this really nice thick piece of pencil here and just start drawing over the back of it. The darker and more full you can get it, the better. So I apologize for my lack of entertainment value here. This is just going to take a second. Pardon my lunch stains. Someone sing a song or something while I'm doing this. It'll make the time go faster. And just to point out what I'm doing, I'm not putting this thing straight up and down. I'm kind of holding it at a side. It even helps to push it out a little bit further. That way, when you're holding it on the side, you can sort of apply a little bit of pressure. And I'm not really pushing all that hard, to be honest.
You bring your own carbon paper essentially.
Exactly. So for the people online, the gentleman in the classroom said that I'm creating my own carbon paper. That's exactly what I'm doing. You can actually go out and buy carbon paper, or you can just do it this way. I call this the poor man's method. It's like top ramen in your college dorm. It just works. We're almost there. Now, this isn't going to work as well as something like a piece of carbon paper, but it works. And if you want it to be a little bit darker, one of those other tools that I mentioned, I'll try to throw one of those in Slack. That way you can see what those are that I'm talking about. But those will make it even darker and give you even more particles that you can transfer onto the paper. Now, I've said the word transfer a couple of times. And that's because there's a name to this technique. It's called the transfer technique. You take a piece of regular white paper and you put it in the back there. Now you've got Teddy Roosevelt sitting on the front. And this is where, so the pencil that I just used is, it's a 2.0 and it is a B. So B is standing for brittle, H standing for hard. Okay? So I use that to ink up the back. Now I'm going to switch to something a little bit firmer, which is going to be about a 0.7 H. Now, don't rely on me and the color of pencil that I'm using here because I've swapped out my stuff to do what I want. Yours might come a little bit differently. Just get familiar with the way that it falls on the page. Now, I mentioned it's called the transfer technique because we're literally just going to trace. We're going to transfer the image to the paper because illustration isn't always about photorealism. It's about simplification. It's about using shapes to illustrate image, right? So I'm looking for areas of contrast, right? We learned about contrast a little bit, so variation between light and dark for the most part in this application. And I am tracing the outlines of those variations. It helps in some situations if you can get a piece of masking tape, or sometimes you might hear it called artist's tape. You don't need to go to the art store and buy artist's tape. That is absurdly expensive for no reason. Just go to Home Depot or Walmart or wherever and just get some masking tape, something that comes off really easily. The difference between artist tape and masking tape is that artist tape tends to be a little less tacky. So it comes off the page a little bit easier. And if you want to do that, take the masking tape and put it on your pant leg and pull off some of the lint, because it'll make it a little less sticky. So I'm going to just freehand it, which means the paper might shift a little bit. So I really have to kind of hold it down so that nothing moves on me. Any architects in the room? Does this sort of feel familiar? Okay. This is a common technique that they use. So I'm just literally going to trace the outline, and I'm not worried about being overly perfectionistic here. I would expect you guys to maybe take a little bit more time than what I'm doing. And you see this little bump in his shoulder right here? We can edit that out right here. We don't even need to include it. See, I already moved the paper. So then I can trace that down, and now I'm pressing a little bit firmly. I'm not pressing hard. I don't want to break my pencil here, but I am pressing somewhat firmly. And the idea here is that we're starting somewhere, and then we're going to end somewhere. Right? It doesn't really matter where you start, but you want to start and end. There I'm just tracing around his shoulders, his head. We're getting a general outline. It's very light, but it's there, right? So now we can start looking at some finer details. We can outline his hair. It's got this nice little widow's peak in there. Good old Teddy Roosevelt. So now we've got his hair in there. We can maybe add his ears. I'm just following the contour lines here. That is it. Maybe let's add some eyebrows. Add some wrinkles in his eyes. Maybe let's add the eyes. And notice how quickly I'm going. Because remember, how do you make money in this industry? Efficiency and time. It's got these very interesting glosses. So I'm literally just filling in. And I'm not even like drawing. I'm just drawing the outlines. Tracing. Because I'm a terrible drawer. His nose. On that side, let's get his lips. Get this mustache. Just following the outlines that I see. His chin, a little shading, collar here. That's
Could you do this part with a pen? Because you're essentially just trying to apply pressure.
You could. Yeah, you can do it with a pen. I like pencil just because I'm old.
I like pencil.
Would you look at that? There's Teddy Roosevelt. I'll take my applause now. Thank you. You can do this with anything, guys. And I told you guys I'm a shit drawer, but I don't know. That's a pretty good drawing, if you ask me. It's not perfect, but it'll get you where you need to go. Someone could easily look at that and say, oh, damn, that's Teddy Roosevelt. Cool? So transfer technique. There you go. Any questions for online?
Yes, so it was kind of difficult. I mean, the glare was such that we couldn't really actually see
Okay.
unless your hand was sort of blocking some light
Okay.
on the
I will
left.
retake and upload within the video.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do see a question in there that like, it should be pencil. So to ink the back, yes, you need to use pencil because you need some of that particulate matter from the graphite to transfer onto the page behind. The tracing that you do over the top, we had a good question in here. You could use a pen for that, but if you've already got a kit of, I don't know, 8 pencils laid out here, why waste your time going and getting another pen? Again, you make money in this industry by efficiency, right? Cool. All right, so we started with the transfer technique. You guys will see how that might come into play probably when you do your module 2 assignment. You'll actually need to find a famous person and illustrate them using typography, but you'll probably want some sort of outline or layout in this way, okay? But before you guys get that good, let's start with some basics. I want to show you guys a little bit of Illustrator, and as I mentioned, we're going to just do the lab in class, okay? So, before I start with that, I want to mention another thing about continuing to make money in this industry, okay? What parts of our bodies do we use most in this industry? Las manos, right? Our hands. And so if these things go bad, if these things get rotten, if they start hurting, you're going to be a little bit slower. It's going to be a little bit harder to be comfortable working. So you need to start taking care of your bodies now. Everyone stop what you're doing and look at me. Carpal tunnel is a huge problem in this industry. It's where your ligaments in your hands here hurt so bad that your hand can sometimes end up in a fist like this, or your fingers just stop working. You don't want that. So my recommendation to you all right now, after this class, before you even touch Illustrator, go out and get yourself one of these. This is a mouse pad with a wrist rest. Okay? This little squishy bit right here, that protects your wrist from just slamming into the table all day. And that hurts. Also,
Can I add something?
yes, please do. Are you a carpal tunnel victim?
No, I am actually not, because I have a little glove that I wear.
That's right.
And it just has a little bit of, a sandbag right there at the wrist. And so it doesn't matter where I move my hand, I always have it with me. So
Yeah.
instead of it being attached to the mouse pad, I have it attached to my wrist.
Yes, that is another alternative as well. Professor Storm, would you mind finding a link to one of those and maybe just dropping it in a Slack?
Yep. I will put it in the chat. Yep.
Yep. There are several solutions. They also make one of these for your keyboard so that when you're typing, same concept. This thing costs $12. A carpal tunnel surgery costs $20,000. I'll leave that where it is.
I have a question.
Yes,
So
one more time, sorry.
I'm going to take you back.
Yeah, please.
So for the previous session, when you're using the pins, so I know we have HB, we have E, and then we have H. When do we have to use HB? Because
Good question.
yeah,
So the question for online is that there's so many different values of pens. The one that's right in the middle, that's called hard brittle, HB, that is, there are different use cases for each pencil. I mean, realistically, for me, it's kind of like cooking. The burner's either on high or low. There's nothing really in between. So for me, I'm usually using a 6B or a 5H or a 6H, something like that. Where you might use an HB is just, I mean, most of us are familiar with a 2B pencil, right? I usually default to that just because it's comfortable. And HB is just a little bit harder than that. So if you just want like a slightly crisper line or less breakage of the pencil, you might use it for that. You can think of it on a spectrum. So 6B is going to be the most brittle. And then there's two scales that you can work with. You can work with the brittleness scale, which is the 6B, 5B, so on. And then there's also the width. So the 2.0 that I mentioned, that's how wide the stick is of graphite in there. So there's not really use this for this thing. It's kind of a what does what you want it to do. Good question though. Okay, so Illustrator. Let me pull up really quick your guys' lab. Let me share my screen on Notion or on Zoom really quick. I also think it's important to pause for a second and go over a couple of settings. Not settings within Illustrator, but settings within your computer. Also, another thing that you guys should probably think about is this. This is a mouse. You guys all have probably trackpads on your computer. By the way, I am the worst example when it comes to mice. They call this an ergonomic mouse. It is the least bit ergonomic. But I also value aesthetics, so.
But you have to charge
from the bottom. Yeah, they
You can't
didn't
charge
quite
it.
figure out the UX. So get a mouse that works for you. It doesn't need to be an Apple mouse. It doesn't need to be something that belongs to your computer. It doesn't need to be one of those big old chunky things. But I do recommend a mouse. Someone online mentioned that they use a stylus. That's okay. It's a little bit harder if you ask me, but to each their own. In which case, if you do end up getting a mouse, I find that it's a little bit better to illustrate when your mouse moves a little bit faster. If you're maybe just getting used to Illustrator, you might not care. But for me, again, we make money in this industry from speed. I don't want to have to wait 3 minutes before my mouse moves across the screen, being a little dramatic there. You can actually change the speed in which your mouse moves. I'm going to show you guys on a Mac. I can't help you with a PC, I'm sorry. I will try to make sure that my keyboard commands are at least modified. Down here, there is mouse, and you can change the tracking speed. You can also do this for your trackpad. If you set it to slow, well, by golly gosh, it's going to take a lifetime to get your mouse across the screen. So for me, I just max it out because I like to go fast. Ugh, one more, come on. There we go. So that's something that just helps. Another thing, particularly for you Mac users, Spotlight will quickly become the bane of your existence because there's a keyboard command within Illustrator for zoom, and that is Command Spacebar. Sorry, I do it just naturally. I think it's Command Spacebar. Don't quote me on that. So if you come into your keyboard shortcuts here, doink, you'll want to turn off Show Launchpad. Sorry, Command, yeah, something like that. And the reason that you want to turn that off is because it also uses Command Spacebar, and it's going to override what Illustrator wants because it's part of the operating system. So you can turn that off, and you'll thank me when you're not frustrated. Okay? Any questions on that before we get going? Cool. Yeah.
I also recommend turn off natural scrolling if you use a mouse because it scrolls the opposite way of you thought it would go.
I am a natural scroller where, so basically the recommendation was to turn off natural scrolling if you're a Mac user, which is where sometimes it feels like maybe someone's scroll is moving in an opposite direction. I have adapted to it, but if that's uncomfortable for you, that is a good recommendation to watch the scroll direction of your mouse. All right, who's ready to learn a little bit about Illustrator? I'm gonna pull up your guys' lab because there's a couple of things that I want you guys to know. Now, for whatever reason, it feels like my mouse is moving slow. Okay, so we are currently in lab 2.1. And literally your guys' only job is to trace the Apple logo. That's it. So all I'm gonna do is right click this image. I would recommend do a save as. There we go. I don't care where you save it. I'm gonna save mine to the desktop. Once you have that image, you can then go in and open up Illustrator. And I forget exactly what my recommendations are, so let's go look. You need to create a document with dimensions of 5 inches by 5 inches. For those of you international folks, that's 12.7 centimeters by 12.7 centimeters. Okay, so coming over here to Illustrator, your guys' might look a little bit different on first open. That's okay. I'll come up here to New File on the left, and you're going to recognize that it's going to want to probably show you points. That's frustrating. No one measures in points. That's not entirely true, but especially not beginners. I am unfortunately not associated with the metric system, so I apologize. I'm going to use inches, but I have tried to do my absolute best in the instructions to use both metric and imperial measurements. If you want to use centimeters, those are down here. Inches, right there. And it will change this up for you. You'll just select them there and you'll do 5 inches high, 5 inches wide. For you guys, that's 12.7 centimeters by 12.7 centimeters. Now, there is a segment in here called bleed. I'm gonna pause for that. You guys don't need to use a bleed for this assignment. There may be future assignments where you do. Bleed, can anyone tell me what bleed is?
Yeah,
What was that?
when the color or the frame is at the edge of your sheet,
Yeah.
and in case you're printing it, sometimes the ink tends to fall out of that. So
Correct, yes. So for the people online, bleed is where the edge of the frame, if your color goes over the frame, if you just put it to the edge of the frame, you're going to end up with what's called trapping, where there's a little bit of white that seeps in from the edge, versus if you let that color fall off of the edge with a bleed, so the color is physically bleeding off the page, then you don't have to worry about that white edge of the paper anymore. Okay, those are just slight errors with printing that happen, and you're trying to over accommodate for those errors. Okay. Oh, okay, the chair doesn't go any higher. That will. So we've got that set up. Now, the color profile is very, very important. We mentioned that there's different kinds of profiles back in one of my previous lectures. So something for you to think about is, what is the output of this file going to be? Is it going to be for print or is it going to be for digital? If it's going to be for digital, what would be the correct color palette? RGB, thank you. If it's going to be for print, what is the correct color palette? Thank you. There are exceptions to this. I know I've sat here and I've beat over your head that if it's going to print, it will be CMYK. If it's going to digital, it will be RGB. And for the most part, that is true. However, let's say that you send your file to a photo lab and you ask them to print it out on large poster paper. 9 times out of 10, those printers, they have calibrated to an RGB spec. So if you export your profile as a CMYK, you're going to get not what you designed. So just be careful about that. If you are sending something to print, be very, very mindful to go and inspect their color profile that they want you to use. If they don't have a color profile specified, call them. If they still don't have a color profile specified, you should probably not use that printer because you cannot verify their color and you don't know what you're going to get. Yeah.
Once you've created it, let's say you have a finished product and there's a CMYK and your RGB, can you just change this later?
You can, but you'll want to go in and double check your colors because if you remember, if you're speccing CMYK, the RGB may not be of the same values. So you'll want to just double check that. Yeah, good question. Okay, so we've got all this set up. And then down here, you also have your raster effects. Now, hold on a second. I mentioned that Illustrator is vector, right? Well, we're still working in a raster environment because our screen is made of pixels, right? So while yes, the drawing is vector, and you can scale it infinitely almost, you still need to set a specific output type for things like JPEGs, because you can still export from Illustrator into a JPEG, a PNG, all of those raster exports, even though you're designing it in vector. So here, you're just kind of setting roughly what pixel size you want your drawing to be. Professor Storm, I can't think of any situation where anything other than 300 ppi to design in Illustrator would be appropriate, but tell me if I'm mistaken.
No, you are absolutely correct. The higher the better.
Perfect, yeah. The higher the better because you can always reduce it later. You can't always go bigger later. That's a little untrue for Illustrator, but just get used to 300. think I covered all of that. Preview mode, just leave it as default. Frankly, none of these are going to be helpful for you until you're like way down the printing route. I don't do this, but it's a good habit to get started now, is just name your file when you start. Okay, so let's go back to my file here. I have given you guys a specific file name to use. Should have at least. Someone tell me if my eyes aren't working.
At the end.
Yeah,
There we go. Okay, so here's your file name. Just copy that, paste it in here. And now I can't see, but I'm going to leave it like that. Just make sure to replace your name and make sure to change your date and semester and all that good stuff.
So did we drop the .ai at the end too, or?
You don't have to. It should autocorrect for that, but no, you don't have to. Good call. All right, so then once we've done all of that, we can hit create. I'm going a little slow here, so if I need to slow down or speed up, just let me know. Now, once we have that, hang on, where's my mouse? Give me a sec, I'm going to change up my screen for a minute. That way I can see what I'm working on and I don't have to look over there. That might help.
Are we proceeding with CMYK or RGB here?
I have it for CMYK, but you can use RGB here. I'm not overly concerned about it. Or actually, I might have put it in the instructions, so check that. Okay. Online, you guys can see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. Let me just move a couple of things around and then we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, would be.
Okay, so let's see. Yeah, I didn't specify, so you can use whichever, it doesn't matter. CMYK would work. Okay, so, yes. Sorry about that noise, that's awful. 1 second. We're getting there. Sorry, table move slow. It's the ultimate classic joke. Sorry, we had a question over here.
Just clarification.
Sure.
We do have those AI and PDF. So we're going to upload 2 files.
So yes, there are 2 different file types, so you will end up uploading 2 files. Yep, so you'll upload an Illustrator native file as well as a PDF. Okay. All right, so we have what is called we learned about this. What is this white space here? Artboard, yes. We're in an Adobe tool, so it's an artboard. If it were in Figma, it would be a frame. So we have that. Now I need to go and grab the file that I saved. So I'll go to my desktop, and there it is, Apple logo. I'm just going to drag this and drop it into the frame. You're going to notice that it kind of doesn't center it. I got to get rid of everyone on Zoom, so I apologize. Give me a sec. There we go. All right, now we can see. So with this image selected, I'll come up here and I'll hit my align center horizontal, my align center vertical. Because what that does is it's just saying, hey, here's the entire artboard. Make sure that whatever it is that you have selected is centered within that artboard. Okay?
Wait, how did you get the tools across the top?
Good question. So you will notice that a lot of the navigation is contextual. If you select something, you get different navigation. So if you are not selected on the image, you won't get that menu. If you select it, you will get it.
Ours is on the right hand side.
Yes, that is another thing. A lot of this is somewhat customizable. I would recommend, you guys are probably starting out in Essentials up here in the top right. So there's this little tiny box up here. And when you click that, you'll see Automation, Essentials, Essentials Classic, Getting Started, Layout, You guys might be in either Getting Started or Essentials, I would imagine. Does that look correct for you guys? Okay. I personally would recommend change that to Essentials Classic. You get a lot more bang for your buck out of that. You can also customize your workspace so that it works for you. So for example, all of my tools, I've moved over here on the left. Most of your guys's are probably going to start out over here on the right. Okay? You can move these around and then save them to your own custom workspace. I recommend that once you get a little bit more familiar with Illustrator. Now, you might be wondering, why do I have all of these over here? For me, it's a speed thing. I'll get to you in a sec. If I'm already over here and grabbing a tool from this bar, and all of these were way over here, I have to move all the way across the page with my mouse in order to access different tools. So I just put them all on one side so that I can work faster. That may be true for you, it may not. Okay. Question back here, yes.
Sorry, where's the Essentials Classic again?
Yep, good question. So up here in the top right, they're very, very far right. There's a little box, you've got a grid, and then a little box with a box inside the box. And it should say switch workspace. You click that, then you can select between the different view modes.
Which one do you select?
I suggest Essentials Classic, just to get yourself started, and then you can start building your own workspace and go from there. Okay? Now, I've got my image in here of the Apple logo, and just like I did with the paper over here, I want to make sure that my image isn't moving around while I'm trying to illustrate it. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell this to you guys and you're going to forget it and you're going to come to me and you're going to say, I'm so frustrated. Why does this not work the way I want it to? That's because if you can't tell me how to do the same thing 10 different ways in any Adobe software, you're not a professional yet. There are so many different ways to achieve the exact same result in any Adobe software. So I'm going to teach you one way, and then there may be several others. Okay? I want you guys to get comfortable trying it my way. And then once you've done it my way, you're welcome to explore some other ways. Okay? So I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can lock down that image in the background. You can come here to layers. Now, there's also several ways that you can get to layers. Mine have been reordered, so mine may not be in the same spot as yours. If you're trying to find it for the first time, you can come up to Window and Layers right here. Okay? Once I click that, this will pop up and it'll actually show you where your layers are. Okay? But by and large, it's two squares that are stacked on top of each other. That's it. Here you can see my layer. And right here, you can't really see it until you hover over it, but there's a lock. Okay? So that's one way that you can lock down whatever is behind there. Now, if I select, it won't let me do anything. In order for me to do the next thing, I have to create a new layer. And the way that I did that was down here, there's a little square with a plus icon. When you hover over it, it says create new layer. That's what you're looking for. Now, you're going to hear a lot of hubbub about naming your layers. No one names their layers. No one does it right, anyways. There are some people who have a lot of experience that name their layers, but I think at this point in the industry, things move so quickly, naming layers is sort of reserved for the important things. I don't think anyone's going in and naming every single individual shape. They're kind of naming the top layer, right? So here I might come in and name this original image. I did spell that right, good. And then here I might name this artwork, like that. Layers named. Now, I am going to unlock this for a second because I want to show you guys another way that you can lock something. There are a lot of keyboard commands in Illustrator. I strongly recommend that you just find one of the resources online, find an image that has all those keyboard commands in them, and just print it out and like glue it to the side of your monitor, at least until you learn them and they become habitual, okay? So one of the keyboard commands that you can do when you're working with an image or wanting to lock something, you can select the image and do Command 2. On a PC, that will be Control 2. Okay? Now, if you want to unlock it, okay, that was what I thought. It would be Command Option 2 to unlock. Okay. Really quickly, everyone look at my hand. It's permanently affixed like this because there's a specific hand gesture on the keyboard that a lot of illustrators use. The finger positioning is, for those of us that use Macs, Command will go on the thumb, Shift will go on the ring finger for the left hand, and then get your, what is that, your middle finger there? Get that positioned right above Z. Can anyone tell me why that hand gesture is kind of important?
Zoom.
No, Z does not mean zoom.
Oh, you don't change it.
Undo.
Sorry, what was it?
Undo.
Undo. Command Z undoes, Command Shift Z redoes. We have a lot of undoing in this industry. So your hand will just be permanently stuck in a claw position. Just get used to it. Try to get comfortable with that hand positioning, because if you can do that, you can work really quickly. And then your hand is also within relatively quick reach of other keyboard commands. Think of it like playing one of those old computer games where, what was it? A, W, S, and D were like your navigation, right? Maybe I'm old. Okay, anyways.
What was it, lock?
Lock Command 2.
What? So, okay, sorry, when you do command two, it locks it, but the icon doesn't show up on that layer.
Yeah, so
The way that we clicked it, so I was just wondering what the difference is there.
Oh, good question. So what it's doing is it's actually locking the layer inside because that's what I had selected.
I see.
So you can have layers inside of layers within Illustrator.
Yeah.
Actually, the way that you would look at that is not layers and layers, it's elements within layers. And then you can also have groups within layers, but then your elements go within the groups and then the groups are within the layers. So if we look at that,
Essentially, the image, like the artboard is a layer, and then the image is what's getting locked.
the artboard is not exactly a layer, it's just the ground in which that you're designing on.
Yeah.
But then you're adding the layer on top of the artboard. Now, in Figma, different story. In Figma, the frame or the artboard is actually a layer. So that gets a little tricky sometimes.
So do you click on the main layer or the one that's below it?
It depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. You'll see as we get some more shapes in here, how they all sort of nest.
When I click on the base layer, the main layer, it's not locked.
So
When I click on the original layer,
right here.
yeah, that layer, when I click on it.
So if you are just selecting that layer,
Yeah.
it won't lock it. What you want to do is select the actual image and then do Command 2. Or go to the actual image layer within that. There's a little caret drop down there. And then you can lock it from there.
Alright.
Good? Did you get it to work?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions before I move on? It only gets more complex from here. We're good? Okay. So everyone should have their image layer locked, yes? Now what you're gonna do is I'm gonna get you guys comfortable with using what is called the pen tool, okay? If you ask me, this is the best way to illustrate any, well, maybe not simple shapes, but any complex shape, okay? The keyboard command for that is P. P for pen, and it's this guy right up here. If you hover over it, it'll show you the pen tool. Cool? Now, I'm gonna use a little bit of an abstract metaphor here to explain how the pen tool works. Because what you don't want to do is just go in and start blip, 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 dropping points. You want to think about the economy of the number of points that you're using, okay? Now, really quickly, if you, excuse me, apparently my voice is a teenager again. If you are on the original image layer and it's locked, your pen tool will not work. Okay? You have to move up a layer and make sure that you are selected on the artwork layer. Okay? Now I'll close my layers there. And here is the metaphor that I'm going to use. Anyone familiar with football Americano? No? You have a football and you have to throw it. It works in an arc, right? So as let's say that I'm stuck. What is happening? There, please. Let's say that I'm the quarterback and I have a football and I'm trying to throw it to my friend on the other side of the room. I'm not just gonna throw it at him, right? I have to arc it so that it goes over all of your heads and you guys can't intercept it. And my friend in the back can catch it. Okay? So now imagine that he's 100 yards away and there's a little bit of a hill, right? That hill is the shape of the apple here. Okay, so you have to throw your point over the hill. You'll see how that makes sense in a second. I usually recommend, as much as you can, this doesn't work in all scenarios, but as much as you can, try to start at a acute angle. Okay? Remember your high school geometry class? Acute angles, so something like this where the angle is small on the inside. Okay? You're gonna click and drag over the hill. Okay, so imagine this point that I'm holding right here. Imagine that that is my football. And I am throwing it over the hill. I need to kind of project where this thing's gonna go. And this is gonna take a little bit of time for you all to get comfortable with and understanding how it's gonna work. So experiment and fail with it a couple of times. I'm gonna do this really somewhat quickly, just to show you guys how fast that you can go with this. I'm not looking for perfection because I can come back and I can do it later. Now, what I'm doing is I'm using these points to articulate how the line around the shape is going to go. You can already see that some stuff is filling in here. I kind of don't want that right now, but I am going to try to make this a little bit clearer. So over here, I'm going to look for my swatches. Your guys' is probably on the other side. In your swatches, sometimes it shows up as natural black and white. Sometimes it might give you a color. It just depends on what you use last in Illustrator. I'm going to set my fill. There are two color options within one shape in Illustrator. There's a fill and there's a stroke. Okay? The fill is the color that goes inside of the shape. And then the stroke is the line outside of the shape. Sometimes you need both. Sometimes you need one. Sometimes you don't need any. Okay? I'm going to turn off my fill and my stroke for this one. Just as I'm illustrating the general shape. Because I don't want my fill color or my stroke to get in the way of what I can see. Okay? So I've already completed these shapes. So now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to draw another one. There we go. Then I might add another one. I think I can right here. So again, I mentioned point economy, trying to execute this design with as few points as possible. I think, if I remember correctly, I've challenged you guys to do it in 13 points. I think I can do this one in 12. Okay. We'll see. Now, really quickly, I think this is something important. You'll notice that my pen is no longer attached. It's no longer creating a path. This happens. Sometimes if you press a button or you click off the page, if you hit escape, it'll disconnect your point. So I think it's important that you guys know how to reconnect it. If you hover over the point, you'll notice that the point changes. See how right now it's a little asterisk? I know it's kind of hard to see. And then if I hover over the point, it'll give you a minus. If I hold Option, it's not going to change, but it'll allow me to redraw my anchor point. But notice how that anchor point is moving freely from this anchor point. They're not connected anymore. So you're no longer working with what's called a Bezier. Okay? Anyone heard of the term Bezier curve? It's a very smooth curve. Oftentimes you use what is called a French curve to create a Bezier. And it's just very smooth. Okay? That's oftentimes what you want within a lot of illustrations, is a very smooth line. You don't want it to look choppy. So instead of doing that, I'm going to hold Command. Nope, sorry. Why is my keyboard? Hold on. Professor is having a problem. There we go. Let me reset up that scenario. There we go. So now I'm disconnected. I can come back over here. And if you just click on it, it's going to get rid of one anchor point altogether. So what I recommend is click in and then do Command Z a couple of times, and you'll have to redo this point down here. But then you'll get both of your anchor points back. Okay? Everyone doing good? All together?
So how do you determine where to drop that anchor point?
That takes, so for the people online, the question was, how do you determine where to drop your anchor points? It takes time. It takes time in figuring out what the right look is. But it's kind of like throwing a football, right? So to go back to my metaphor, if I'm standing right here and I want to get my football over here, try it. See if it works, right? You're going to need to know what your limits are, or better yet, in this case, what the limits of the program are. So the only way for you to know sometimes is to try it. Best case scenario is work in smaller chunks, right? I mentioned point economy, but you're only really going to get there once you get good. So for now, start by making it look good. If you need more points to do that, that's okay. Yeah.
I think I'm stuck.
Okay. Let's see. What you got?
I didn't see any log.
So
I didn't see any log. I never had any log.
so it doesn't look like you were using your pen. There you go. Now you have it. But you're building within one layer. So add another layer. So there, all you can do is just now.
Oh, I think you.
So go up to layer 2, and then use your pen tool. Yeah, and then you can start there and trace around. You don't have to hold it, you just press it once.
Trick is to use
And
an
then pull your
image trace.
There you
I
go.
use.
Now you're working.
Yeah, I use
Good?
Affinity
I
Designer.
was like, that's
Yeah,
How do you connect it?
especially like.
We'll get there. Yep.
When you work contract.
So,
Yeah.
really quick, I'm gonna start over just this first part here, just so that you can see. I'm gonna turn off my fill and I'm gonna turn off my stroke. And I'm gonna start at the end here. I'm gonna click and drag. Okay? You can choose how far you want this to drag, but you have to think about it as like you're aiming. Okay? If you pull it down less, you're not gonna be able to go as far, right? If you pull it up more, it's gonna go too far and above the curve that you want. Okay? So you're gonna have to learn how to balance the Bezier. That's what it's called. You're balancing out the Bezier. So I'll start here, I'll click and drag, click and drag, drag. And all I'm doing is I'm trying to trace out the shape. That is it. I'll have one here, click and drag. Trying to work in smaller chunks so that you guys can see me working it a little bit better. Maybe I'll put one here. And notice too that like this time I'm doing it, I'm not exactly putting my points in the same spot, right? So there isn't really an exact right spot that you can put the point. As long as it makes the shape, you're good, okay? I'll come over to this side, I'll add a point here. And I'm also not super focused on being perfect, okay? Because I can come back and I can change a lot of this later. How are we doing on this part? Because we're about to get to a little bit of a harder part. We're good? Everyone's following? Okay. So right here, we're at a crossroads. Notice that right now my anchor points are still connected, right? So if I'm trying to go around this corner, that bottom corner wants to go with it. We don't want that, right? So, and worst case scenario, if you just go from the click in, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, right? So what you do is set up your first angle on the back end of the curve, then hold Option. On a PC, that'll be Alt, and then drag that in. And that gives you an obtuse angle, or I'm sorry, an acute angle. My geometry teacher would be a little disappointed. So we've got that in there. And we're going to have to adjust it a little bit. Now we're back at an obtuse angle, so I can just do that there. And then now we can close out the shape. But again, it's an acute angle, so I'm going to hold Option on my keyboard, click, and drag. Yeah.
I don't know how exactly that works.
So let me go back. So once you have your point added at the end here, is this the part you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Once you have your point added here, click and drag. You're trying to make sure that this anchor point on the back side of the trailing side of the point, you want to make sure that that's somewhat close. You can go back and you can refine it later. But then once you have that point in place, you can hold, are you on a PC or a Mac? You can hold Option on a Mac, Alt on a PC. Make sure you continue to hold it. Because if you let it go, it's not going to do what you want it to. So hold Option or Alt, click, and then pull it in. Okay. Did that work for you? Good? Cool. So now we'll close out the shape. There. And then hold Option again at the top. Click and drag. Now I mentioned that I wasn't being perfect. This is unfortunately a little bit more perfect than I was hoping for. It's what happens when you work in this industry, but it's still not perfect. It's a little outside, right? So what I can do is I can start clicking some of these anchor points. I can hit A on my keyboard. A pulls up what is called the direct selection tool. Different than the selection tool. Okay? The selection tool, if you select something, it is, hold on, there we go. If you select something, it is going to select the whole thing. But if you want to just select one point, you need the direct selection tool. You're directly selecting that point. Now I can come up here, I can click that point, and now you can see those anchor points again. Now I can manipulate these. And I can manipulate them a little bit more independently. Help me make this a little bit more perfect. I can even click the point and drag it in a little bit if I want to. Maybe this one I want to pull down a bit. Also, this will happen sometimes. Where's my anchor points? Ah! If you can't find it, Command Y. And now you'll be able to see your outline. Click it, Command Y to get out. That was called an outline preview. You can go to that by going to View. Don't choose Overprint Preview. That's not what you want. You want outline. So there's, again, two ways to get to the same thing. Command Y or View Outline. Okay? So now I can see my point, and I can drag this in a little bit. Here I'm a little outside the line, so I can drag that in. Here maybe I pull this out a little bit. Here maybe I drag that in. Oop, did it again. And Y. Come out. There we go. Yes.
Sorry, how did you add on to like the shape that you already like had if it was like still like open? Like
So your shape is still open?
yeah, and
Are you trying to close it?
yeah.
Okay. So what I did there, I'm gonna get rid of a point here. Boink. Let me draw this in. So now, once you kind of get to this point, you want to come back to the original point that you made. And if you just click and drag, it should work. Every once in a while, it might try to attach to as a normal Bezier that is connected. If that happens, you can hold Option or Alt while you click. That way you get the acute angle. So sometimes Illustrator does things that we don't want it to. Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay. So really then just go through and refine the shapes a little bit. You can zoom in. What I'm doing to zoom in there, I sort of mentioned this in the beginning, but I'm holding Command Shift to zoom in, and then I'm dragging my mouse to the left or to the right. Okay? So again, that's where like this claw hand movement is really helpful because you can switch between a bunch of keyboard commands all at once. So you can just move these around, try to get it as close to perfect as you can. If you need a few extra anchor points, that is okay. Try to avoid breaking the anchor point. So don't do this. Oops, hang on. Goodness gracious. So try not to do that as much as you can until you get over to these corners. Try not to make acute angles. Try to keep your anchor points connected. So see how I broke it there? You don't want that on the curve. Okay. I went through that a little quickly. Any questions? Yes.
How do you add anchor points?
How do you add anchor points? So let's say that you had your shape closed already. If you want to add an anchor point, you can do it the hard way, which is you can go back to your pen tool and then get right on top of the line, but it's very thin. And then you can just click and add another anchor point. And now that works independently from the rest, right? Now I said that was the hard way because you kind of have to like find the right spot on the line. The other way you can do it is hit the plus icon on your keyboard and then hit the line. Cool. And then
does the minus one remove the point?
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly it. So the minus will remove a point. And then you can, again, that works independently. Yeah.
Some of my anchor points have the Bezier.
The Bezier?
Yeah, the Bezier, but some of them don't have it on there to adjust it later on.
So in which case, so I think, let me try to recreate what you're going through there. Yours kind of looks like that.
Yeah.
So then what you can do is hold, hold Option,
Okay.
click the point and drag. And that'll give you your anchor points back.
Sir,
Good question. Yeah.
so I'm at that the lower bite.
The lower bite over
Yeah.
here,
Yeah. You know that the corner, the bottom corner?
right here.
Yeah. How do you press option there?
Option. Yep. Option or Alt if you're on a PC. So here, I'll redo it again one more time. Oops. There we go. So here I'm holding Option, clicking, and then just pulling my anchor point in. And then up here, I'll add another one, but this one I'm not going to hold Option for.
Okay, no. Some strange reason. I don't
You're
know.
not? Let me come take a look in a second. And then here, Option again, drag it in. Really quickly online, how are we doing?
We're good. We're good.
Awesome. Anyone panicking?
No, I
Good.
think we're all good. Yeah.
Awesome. Very nice. Oops, I did not mean to stop sharing my screen. Let me try that again. Expand calls. Okay, let me check yours out really quick because you mentioned you're not getting the anchor point pulled.
Yeah, I just have to go back a bit because I lost that icon.
Let me test.
Yeah.
See, others.
So press option and then
You're probably using a different
The line.
Not easy
So-
control with.
I'm just gonna.
I would like to.
Right,
That's why you made it save your file.
Do you like?
Yeah, and you
Oh, you have one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Not work.
Yeah, you
There's a lot of
bet.
shapes here.
Did you get it? Okay, good.
I'm just doing like, what was that?
All right, pulling back in for a second. One of the things that a couple of people were struggling with,
Like Affinity Design too.
really quick, one of the things that some people were struggling with is that they weren't holding Option or Alt while they were pulling their anchor point in. You can't just press it, you have to hold it and then pull it in. Cool? All right, let's do the other guy. Now we've got this guy. Now this is a little bit of an even break between some acute and obtuse angles, right? So here it's getting challenging, but this is the last part, right? Doesn't matter which direction you go, I'm actually going to go in the opposite direction of what I did with my other one. I'm going to start at the bottom, I'm gonna click and drag. And then I'm just gonna come up to this part here, click and drag. And I'll hold Option, drag it down. Then I'll come down here, hold Option, drag out. And then I can come up here and I can sort of refine this a little bit, pull it out, pull this in. And there we go. We've got our shape, okay? If I hit Command Y, that looks a lot like the Apple logo. Thank you. No, I'm kidding. That's not even good fun. So I'm also going to do this. I'm going to come back to my layers. Now that I have my shapes, I'm actually just going to turn off the original image. So right here, there's a little eyeball on the left in the layers. Just boink, turn it off. That's it. But you'll notice that there's nothing there. But it's still there. Okay? That's because what did we do earlier? We turned off our fills and our strokes. So there's no color to be seen. It's transparent right now. So what I can do is I'm going to click off on the slide here, just click and drag over the whole thing so that I can select that shape. Now I can come back up to my colors here and I can add a fill. Voila, first lab done. Okay. Now, that said, depending on what happens when you turn off your stroke and your fill, you may need to select both of these. So, for example, if I put black there, you're not actually getting a shape fill, you're just getting the stroke, okay? You guys don't need a stroke for this assignment, so don't worry about that. Go ahead and turn that off. But then you'll try to add a fill and you're like, I can't figure out how to add a fill. Come over here and click on the fill and then click on the color. Wow, what happened? I didn't select my shape, okay? Reselect your shape, come back, turn off the stroke, click on the fill, add a fill, okay? Who's lost? Couple of people? Okay, don't
So
worry.
you wanted us to have stroke and not fill, or?
I want you guys to have fill and not stroke.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I offer a quick little trick?
Yes, please.
Down, so I'm gonna have to direct you toolbar, where you have the box, and then you down a little bit more.
Right here?
Down. You've got the black fill there, and oh my goodness, there you
Yes.
go, right there, and then
Yes.
top to the right on the upper, yes, there. If you click on that, it'll toggle back and forth.
Correct.
I use that all the time.
Same. Yeah, this is a color toggle. You can do this. This is really easy. It's just a little hidden. So yeah, that works too. Again, until you can tell me 10 different ways to do the same thing, you're not a professional yet.
You can also press X for that, right?
I know you can do that in Photoshop. It doesn't change the color, but it does toggle between the stroke and fill.
Yeah.
Photoshop's is a little bit different, where if you press X, it'll give you a default fill of black and a default stroke of white, or vice versa, something like that.
It's dependent on what's selected there.
Okay, there you go. Everyone good?
Yeah.
All right, any questions? Last chance. Stop sharing. Let's see how we can chat.
If she's a little angular, is that okay?
I want you guys to try to refine it as much as you can.
Okay.
So go in there, try to work with adjusting the Beziers a little bit, try to work with adjusting the points. Because, and here's why this is important. If you gave Apple an angular logo, they're going to be a little cranky about it.
Yeah.
So you want to get good at recreating the design before you actually go and design something yourself. Okay. I saw a hand up here. Yeah.
How did you adjust like the individual Bezier curves?
The individual Bezier curves. So let me share my screen again. So are you talking about like when I come back to adjust them? I used A on the keyboard, which is the direct selection tool, and that's this guy up here. And then once I have that, I can come in and I can select an anchor point. And now I can sort of, oops, there we go. Now I can move that around a little bit. It's a lot more fun when there's nothing there because now it looks like it's dancing. Did that help?
Not the Apple logo.
Anyone else? Yeah.
So what's the difference between anchor and a path?
An anchor and a path. So the path is the actual line, right? It's the actual hold within the shape. So right here, that little square right there, that is the anchor. And then
If I move the path or the anchor, like going on, which one's?
The
So-
path will basically just move the object itself.
this right here, this curved area, that is your path. This is your anchor. And then this is your toggle. Okay, it's a good little bit of anatomy there. Any other questions? Anything from online?
Do you have to keep the logo black?
You don't have to keep the logo black. You can change it to any color you want. Just make sure that it's like not some garish like gradients or something like that. Who made garish gradients?
Okay, well, thank you for answering.
Yes, of course. Any other questions while we're here? Online, any questions? I want to give you guys some time and attention.
We can't actually.
The toggle
I think
basically.
we're good. I'm not seeing any pop up into the chat.
It's not gonna make it great. That's
The toggle basically is tangential always
Always
to the path that you're trying to work, right?
Yes, for the most part.
That
All right, I think that's it for today, guys. Have a wonderful day. Make sure to get this lab turned in. You guys have a little bit of the weekend to work on it. And then when you guys come in on Tuesday, we're gonna do SpongeBob SquarePants. So we'll get to illustrate that, and that one's gonna get a little bit harder, so just be prepared for a little bit more advanced topics. Okay? Cool. Have a good day online. Have a great weekend.
Toodaloo, guys.
Thank you.